So I wanted to show you guys how I ended up mounting these rigid D2 amber fog lights the other day. When I bought them, they came with these brackets that may look at home on a Jeep, but were pretty out of place on the bike. I had already bought these. I think it's I don't know if it's TourTech. I'm not even sure who makes these light mount brackets for the 1290, but I had those already, and they have this kind of rectangular tab that goes out and has one hole in it at about, I'd say, kind of this location and a little deeper back. And it turns out that if you get these rigid D2s, they already have holes here in the casting for the D2 itself, in the cooling fins on both sides, and that's what the factory bracket, it's like a bent stainless steel bracket, goes into, and it affords it the ability to pivot. And what you're supposed to be able to do is, put it on your bumper right side up or upside down. But what I ended up determining is that if you just flip them 90 degrees, which in the case of a fog, a really diffuse fog, it doesn't matter, then you can fit this light bracket into the cooling fins, and you can just drill one hole into the light bracket where the stainless hardware ends up going through, and then you can see it has a captive nut there, and I threw a spacer in there to kind of drive the nut a little farther down. And then I actually threw I think 3 2/10 shims in there. You can you can see them right there, because the geometry in this aluminum housing of the rigid is too much bigger than the nut for it to be effectively captive if you're going to torque it pretty good. And so you want to make sure that this nylock nut is as far down in the casting as possible to get as much surface area, grabbing onto the flats of the nut. And then maybe you want to take a soda can or something and cut it up and put the little shims in there, so that, because what happened with one of them is I was up higher without this spacer here and without the little shims, and I went to torque it pretty good, and it just turned, in the housing here, and it kind of smeared the aluminum in the housing at the top. So as long as you get the nut down lower, you're good. But overall, I think it's, a surprisingly elegant solution. It fits in there perfectly. You can route this cable up past the radiator there, and it doesn't interfere with the steering stabilizer or the steering itself or anything. And there's like a nice spot to just kind of put it up there. And it just ended up being super elegant, almost like it's made to go there. None of this is actually touching. And the spacing works out pretty good. I dropped it to make sure that they're far enough inboard from the frame, whatever, the crash bars, and they are. If you're on, flat ground, it won't hit them. I still feel like they're pretty damn vulnerable out there. I mean, all it takes is one rock in the wrong spot and that'll bend or something, but I feel like it's worth it. It took a while to figure out the trimming of all the wiring and whatnot for the relay. I hid the relay down in the, down in here, and it's wired. You can see the switch. The switch location ended up working out pretty well also, to where I feel like it's pretty elegant. I had to Dremel out a bunch of this orange plastic here. There's these 2 little clips back behind here and up there, and then they have a clip in the middle that you're supposed to, I'm sure if you guys have taken this on and off, you've seen before, there's like a clip here, but it's not necessary. This thing's on here solid regardless, so that clip that goes under here, it's like it bridges across this plastic part. I just Dremeled that out, and then I had to Dremel a little bit higher in this orange part to make it fit. This is a lit cherry switch, and they're really bright, so it ended up being also really nice to put in this location. Obviously I also dremeled out the hole in this little, you just pull this rubber thing out and you can drill the hole in it. I think it's like 800 thou or something like that hole. And the other really cool thing is that this plastic is somewhat translucent as far as the light, so it's still daytime visible. I wired it into the ignition so it turns on when you turn the bike on. And that's the, the part of the relay that lets the relay switch on. I'd use the ACC2 connection that's back behind the headlight. You can just take this one bolt behind the cell phone thing, you take that off, and then there's a bolt like right here, you take that one off, and then its sister bolt is right here, and you take those off, and then you unscrew the headlight aimer a lot until the headlight comes out. And I used that ACC2 that's in there, which is a ignition hot only accessory. So I wired it in like that, so if you have it on, they only turn on when you turn the bike on, and if you leave it on, they turn off when you turn the bike off. But then you can choose, to have them off, for example, at night, so you're not being an asshole blinding people. But it ended up being pretty nice that plastic's somewhat translucent, so it kind of glows and makes it so it's not super annoying at night, but is still daytime visible, the glow. I guess I'll show you what they ended up looking like, the fog lamps themselves. I feel like they enhance visibility quite a bit. I feel like the 1290 headlight puts out plenty of light, so I'm not worried about having more light for me. I was just worried about, being seen in a Smidsy type situation. But there it is. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments.